The dust kicked up behind the old pickup truck as it rumbled down the gravel road toward the small farmhouse. Sarah pressed her face against the window, watching the endless fields of corn stretch toward the horizon. Her heart felt heavy with shame and uncertainty. At 22, she had never imagined her life would take such a turn. Her wealthy parents had made their disappointment clear. "You're an embarrassment to our family name," her mother had said coldly. "Perhaps some hard work on a farm will teach you the discipline you've never learned." The arrangement had been made quickly, quietly, like a business transaction. Sarah would work for a poor farmer named Jake to pay off debts her reckless spending had created. The truck slowed as they approached a modest white farmhouse with a wraparound porch. The paint was chipped in places, and the wooden steps creaked under years of use. Behind the house, Sarah could see a red barn and several smaller outbuildings. Everything looked simple, worn, but well maintained. This would be her new home, at least for the foreseeable future. Jake emerged from the house as the truck came to a stop. He was a tall man with kind brown eyes and calloused hands that spoke of years of honest work. His flannel shirt was faded but clean, and his jeans were patched at the knees. When he smiled, genuine warmth reached his eyes, something Sarah hadn't seen in a long time from the people in her former circle. "You must be Sarah," he said, extending his hand to help her down from the truck. His voice was gentle, without judgment. "Welcome to Meadowbrook Farm." Sarah clutched her single suitcase tightly, feeling overdressed in her designer clothes that now seemed completely out of place. She had expected anger, resentment, or at least coldness from this man who had been forced to take her in. Instead, she found patience. "I'll show you to your room," Jake said, leading her up the creaking porch steps. "It's not much, but it's clean and comfortable. My housekeeper, Mrs. Henderson, prepared it this morning." The inside of the farmhouse surprised Sarah. While simple, everything was neat and tasteful. Handmade quilts draped over furniture, and fresh flowers sat on the kitchen table. The room Jake showed her was small but charming, with a window that looked out over the vegetable garden. "I know this isn't what you're used to," Jake said quietly, setting her suitcase on the wooden chair by the window. "But I hope you'll find some peace here. We'll start your work tomorrow morning. Nothing too difficult at first, just helping in the garden and with the chickens." That night, Sarah lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to sounds she had never heard before. Crickets chirped outside her window, and somewhere in the distance, she could hear the gentle lowing of cattle. For the first time in months, the noise in her head began to quiet. The next morning, Sarah woke before dawn to the sound of a rooster crowing. She dressed in the simplest clothes she had brought and made her way to the kitchen, where she found Jake already preparing breakfast. "Good morning," he said, looking up from the eggs he was scrambling. "Coffee's ready if you'd like some. We'll eat, then I'll show you around the property." Over breakfast, Jake explained the daily routine. The work was honest and straightforward, tending to the vegetables, collecting eggs, helping with basic farm maintenance. He spoke without condescension, treating her like a partner rather than a burden imposed upon him. As they walked around the farm that first morning, Sarah began to see the place with different eyes. The vegetables grew in perfect rows, the chicken coop was spotless, and the animals seemed healthy and content. Despite its humble appearance, Meadowbrook Farm was clearly run by someone who cared deeply about his work. "How long have you been farming?" Sarah asked as they stopped to check on the tomatoes. "My whole life," Jake replied, kneeling to examine the soil. "This land has been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather started with just 5 acres. We've grown it slowly over the years." Days turned into weeks, and Sarah found herself settling into the rhythm of farm life. The work was physically demanding, but there was something deeply satisfying about it. She watched seeds she had planted with her own hands push through the soil and reach toward the sun. Her soft hands grew calloused, and her back grew stronger. Jake was endlessly patient with her mistakes and generous with his praise for her improvements. He taught her to read the signs of weather in the clouds, to understand when vegetables were perfectly ripe, and to move quietly among the animals so as not to startle them. One evening, as they sat on the porch after a long day of harvesting, Sarah noticed several expensive-looking trucks parked behind the barn that she hadn't seen before. "Those are some nice vehicles," she commented casually. Jake followed her gaze and smiled slightly. "Yes, they serve their purpose." Sarah was curious but didn't press the matter. She had learned that Jake was a private man who shared information in his own time and way. As autumn approached, Sarah realized she had changed in ways she never expected. The constant anxiety that had plagued her in her old life had faded away. She slept deeply each night and woke refreshed each morning. The work gave her purpose, and Jake's quiet kindness had begun to heal wounds she didn't even know she carried. One afternoon, while helping Jake repair a fence, she noticed him taking a phone call. She couldn't hear the conversation, but his tone was businesslike and confident, quite different from his usual gentle manner around the farm. Later that evening, as they prepared dinner together, Sarah finally worked up the courage to ask about something that had been puzzling her. "Jake, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course," he replied, continuing to chop vegetables for their salad. "This farm, it seems to require a lot of resources to maintain so well. And I've noticed things, expensive equipment, those trucks. How do you manage it all?" Jake set down his knife and looked at her thoughtfully. "Sarah, there's something I should probably tell you. This farm, while it means everything to me, isn't my only business interest." He walked to the kitchen window and gazed out over his land. "I own several other properties throughout the state. Thousands of acres, actually. Commercial farming operations, some residential developments, a few small businesses in town. The income from those ventures allows me to keep this place exactly as I want it, small, personal, connected to the land." Sarah felt her breath catch. "You're wealthy. By most standards, yes. But I've learned that wealth isn't about what you own, it's about being able to live the life you choose. I choose to live simply, to work with my hands, to stay connected to the land my grandfather loved." The revelation changed everything and nothing at the same time. Jake was still the same patient, kind man who had welcomed her with open arms. But Sarah finally understood that his acceptance of her hadn't been born from desperation or obligation, it had been a choice. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly. "Because I wanted you to discover who you really are, not who you think you should be based on circumstances. You've worked hard these past months not because you had to, but because you found meaning in it. That's something no amount of money can buy." As winter settled over Meadowbrook Farm, Sarah found herself at a crossroads. Her parents had sent word that her punishment could end whenever she wished to return home. But the thought of leaving this place, leaving Jake, filled her with unexpected sadness. On Christmas morning, as snow fell gently outside the farmhouse windows, Jake presented Sarah with a small wrapped package. "I want you to have this," he said quietly. Inside was a deed to a small portion of the farm, 5 acres with a view of the sunrise over the eastern fields. "Whether you stay or go, this land is yours now. You've earned it with your sweat and dedication. But more than that, you've brought something to this place that it was missing." Sarah looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "What's that?" "Joy," he said simply. "You've remembered how to find joy in simple things. That's a gift not everyone possesses." Standing there in the warm kitchen, surrounded by the quiet contentment of a life built on honest work and genuine connection, Sarah realized she had found something more valuable than all the wealth she had grown up with. She had found herself, and she had found love in the most unexpected place. "I'd like to stay," she whispered, "if you'll have me." Jake's smile was like sunshine breaking through winter clouds. "I was hoping you'd say that." Outside, the snow continued to fall on Meadowbrook Farm, covering the sleeping garden where new life would emerge in spring, just as it had emerged in both of them through the patient work of love, acceptance, and time.